You know what's strange? Sometimes the woman who hurts you is the woman you can't stop thinking about. Not the woman who treated you well, not the woman who was consistent, not the woman who made you feel safe. Her, the one who disappeared, the one who gave you affection then took it away, the one who could make you feel like the most important man in the world, and then make you question whether you mattered at all. And that's where things get dangerous, because you start telling yourself, I just love her. But what if that's not the whole story? What if part of what you're feeling isn't love? What if you've become psychologically attached to the uncertainty? Think about what happens when someone treats you consistently. You know where you stand. You don't have to decode every message. You don't spend 3 hours wondering why she suddenly became distant. You don't stare at your phone waiting for a notification. There's no mystery. And because there's no mystery, there's nothing for your brain to chase. But now imagine something different. One day she's completely into you. She's texting constantly. She's affectionate. She's telling you how different you are. You feel chosen. Then suddenly she pulls away. Her replies get shorter. She becomes distant. You feel the change. You ask yourself what happened. And then she comes back. Warm again, affectionate again, maybe even more affectionate than before. And that moment feels incredible, not just because she's back, because the uncertainty is finally gone. Your brain gets relief, and relief can feel incredibly powerful. This is where the trap begins. Because you're no longer simply pursuing her, you're pursuing the return of a feeling. The feeling you had when she finally gave you attention again. And this creates a brutal psychological cycle. Attention, withdrawal, anxiety, reconnection, relief. Then it starts again, and every time she returns you feel like you've won something, but you haven't actually won the relationship. You've only won another round of the game. This is one reason intermittent reinforcement is so powerful. When a reward arrives unpredictably, it can become extremely difficult to stop checking for it. Think about a slot machine. You don't pull the lever because you know you'll win. You pull it because you don't know when you'll win. That's the psychological difference. Certainty becomes boring. Uncertainty becomes stimulating. And in relationships, that uncertainty can disguise itself as chemistry. You might say, I've never felt this strongly about anyone, maybe. But intensity isn't automatically intimacy. Sometimes intensity is anxiety wearing the mask of attraction. And here's the part most men don't realize. The more uncertain the relationship becomes, the more your mind starts filling in the gaps. She doesn't text, you think about her, she gives you a vague answer, you analyze it, she suddenly becomes affectionate, you replay the conversation, she pulls away again, you wonder what you did wrong. Now she's occupying your mind even when she's nowhere near you. And eventually something changes. You stop asking, is this woman actually good for me? Instead, you start asking, how do I get her to want me again? That's a massive psychological shift. You've stopped evaluating the relationship. You started trying to solve it. And once she becomes a problem you need to solve, you can become emotionally invested in the very thing that's hurting you. This is where another trap appears. The good moments become evidence. She hurt you 10 times. But then, there was that one night. That one perfect night. The conversation. The intimacy. The way she looked at you. The things she said. And your brain keeps returning to that memory. See, she's still in there. Maybe the real her is the woman I saw that night. Maybe if I do things differently, she'll become that person again. So you don't necessarily stay because the relationship is good. You stay because you're trying to get back to its best version. You're chasing a version of her that may only appear occasionally. And this is where hope becomes dangerous. Because hope can keep you attached to potential long after reality has given you enough information. There's another reason this can become especially powerful for men. A man who feels rejected may start turning the relationship into a test of his own worth. If she chooses him, he feels valuable. If she withdraws, he feels like he has failed. So he tries harder. He becomes more available. He explains himself. He buys things. He changes his behavior. He tries to become more impressive. He tries to prove that he's worthy of being chosen. And now, the relationship isn't just about love anymore. It's about validation. That's when losing her can feel like losing part of yourself, because somewhere along the way, you stopped asking whether you wanted her, and started asking whether she wanted you. Read that again. You stopped choosing. You started auditioning. And that's one of the most dangerous positions a man can put himself in. Because when you're auditioning for someone's affection, every small sign of approval feels enormous. A text, a compliment, a kiss, a sudden apology, a "I miss you," and every withdrawal feels like punishment, so you become hyper-focused on her behavior. You monitor, you interpret, you wait, you react. Your emotional state begins moving according to someone else's attention. And that's not freedom, that's dependency. But there's an even deeper trap. Sometimes you don't become addicted to the woman. You become addicted to the version of yourself you believe you can become if you finally win her. You imagine that if she finally commits, you'll finally feel enough. If she finally respects you, you'll finally feel powerful. If she finally chooses you, you'll finally know you were worthy all along. So you keep fighting. Not necessarily for her, for what her choosing you would mean about you, and that's why walking away can feel impossible. Because you're not just walking away from a person, you're walking away from a fantasy. The fantasy that one final victory will heal every rejection that came before it. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Sometimes the person hurting you doesn't have to be intentionally manipulating you for this cycle to develop. People can be inconsistent, emotionally unavailable, confused, immature, avoidant, or simply incompatible with you. The effect can still be the same. Your brain doesn't need a villain, it only needs unpredictability. That's why you have to stop asking, is she doing this on purpose? And start asking, what is this relationship doing to me? That's a much more important question. Because healthy love doesn't require you to constantly recover from the relationship. You shouldn't need emotional withdrawal to appreciate affection. You shouldn't need jealousy to feel desire. You shouldn't need rejection to realize how much you care. And you shouldn't have to lose your peace to experience intimacy. Healthy attraction can be intense, but it doesn't require chronic confusion. There's a difference between mystery and instability. There's a difference between passion and anxiety. There's a difference between loving someone and being psychologically trapped by the possibility of finally being loved by them. So how do you break the cycle? You stop measuring a relationship by its highest moments. You measure it by its pattern, not how amazing can she be, but how does she consistently treat me? Not what could this become, but what is this right now? Not how do I make her choose me, but would I choose this relationship if I didn't have to prove anything? That last question can be brutal because it removes the competition. It removes the chase. It removes the fantasy. And suddenly you can see the relationship without the dopamine of uncertainty clouding the picture. Maybe she wasn't your soulmate. Maybe she was simply the person who taught your nervous system to confuse unpredictability with love. Maybe you weren't obsessed with her. Maybe you were obsessed with getting the next moment of relief. Maybe you didn't need her as much as you thought. Maybe you needed the feeling of finally being chosen. And those are very different things. Because once you understand the difference, something changes. You stop chasing the woman who keeps hurting you. You stop trying to unlock someone who keeps changing the rules. You stop treating her attention like a reward. And you start taking something back that you gave away without realizing it. Your emotional center of gravity. Because the real victory isn't getting her to finally choose you. It's reaching the point where you no longer need her to.